Okay, everyone. My name is Jay Spaleta. I'm from Yelp. I'm an account executive. And for those of you who don't know SPB Hospitality, you soon will. It stands for Serving People Better, and it has a national footprint of 600 restaurants in 36 states. Casey, Terrell, is the CMO and has had a storied career of serving people better. Prior to being named CMO of SPB Hospitality, his experience included stints at AB InBev, Focus Brands, and he started his career as an officer in the U.S. Army. With a little bit about SPB, with $361 million in acquisitions in under 3 years, it's one of the fastest growing restaurant groups in the country. Brands include Logan's Roadhouse, Old Chicago Pizza, J. Alexander's, and most recently, 300 locations of Crystal Burger. So, Casey, tell us about how long you've been in the CMO position and the challenge of inheriting 18 brands.
Right, so it's been about a year, and so I'd worked at Bloomin' and InBev and some other portfolio companies. And so, I mean, a lot of the stuff with restaurants is there's a lot of consolidation happening. And it's just difficult for us to do if you're one brand to be able to get things like just supply chain scale and going out and competing against, I mean, when I ran Schlotzsky's for a while and going out and trying to just get bags of chips versus somebody who has 20,000 restaurants. You know, we had the same thing with Crystal with French fries. You know, McDonald's and Burger King, and I was a Burger King guy. You can go buy an entire potato crop, right? So now with SPB of having about 17, different brands, we can go together as a block. And it's just easier for, to kind of come together as a bit of a Voltron thing, right? And just, that's where we try to do things at scale. And so our ownership is run by Fortress. They're about 50 billion in assets. So very strong backing for us, great owner. But it really is about, okay, we've got QSR all the way to fine dining with Stony River. We're looking for fast casual. How do we put this thing together and be able to get all of that, economies of scale, essentially?
So you could really react to the market. You can replace consumer desires with different channels, et cetera.
Right. I mean, a lot of it is a hedge. So, Crystal is, we call it kind of polished value. It's the White Castle of the South. But it is, it's a legacy QSR brand. And then you put that up against J. Alexander's and Stony River, which are, kind of like a Houston's or Capital Grille. And so we do have a hedge there based on, whatever the interest rates are going up, inflation, and then all the middle brands are, again, it's a way for us to have a lot of different sectors within restaurants. And instead of just having 5 different restaurants, I was at Bloomin', you have Outback, Carrabba's, Bonefish, we all competed with each other, like for share of wallet. These are really complementary brands that all really do work together in a portfolio.
It's a great formula. One of the things that I find amazing is that SPB has had an incredible amount of accolades from the industry. The industry loves SPB's properties. Just mentioning a couple of the awards recently, it was named the best late night fast food by USA Today. That's Crystal.
Yeah, we beat White Castle, no big deal.
Awesome. Love it. Most beloved restaurant brand in America by FSR, one of the most beloved for Crystal. Logan's Roadhouse was also named a beloved restaurant brand by FSR. You were for Old Chicago, recognized as the best franchise to buy. Nation's Restaurant News recognized Old Chicago on their 100 under 100 list, which is the top 100 restaurants with under 100 lokes. These lists are obviously the hard work of everyone from the restaurant employees up to you and the CEO. What does it mean for the company, and how do you use those accolades?
Yeah, I mean, another one we just recently won was we own Gordon Biersch and Rock Bottom, 2 breweries, and we did win gold awards. So our brewers at Rock Bottom did an incredible job. So we try to really we try to use those type of accolades and then go out to the consumer and the B2C side, and as the marketers say, these are all the things that we have won in the industry. How do we translate that to traffic? So please come give us a try, instead of talking about ourselves and boasting about ourselves, winning those awards and doing. I mean, our PR team does a great job. But we do try to leverage that not only within the industry to be, employer of choice, all of that, but also how do we use that for our customers and guests as well.
Great. This is a topic I think a lot of people are afraid to talk about, but it's an important question, which is inheriting 18 brands. You inherit the audiences for those restaurants, and many times an aging demographic. How do you retain that audience with your marketing without alienating them, and also replace it with a younger consumer?
Yeah, so we lean into a lot of behavioral science now, and something that our group calls the shish kebab. So I can give an example on, Logan's. We're trying to have, and it's an older demographic. It's been around for 40 years. So what do those, say, a Gen Z younger, fill the phone? Everybody wants to get Gen Z, right? But a lot of our core is an older group that is, they've been fans for decades, and we don't want to alienate them. So the shish kebab idea is, between the two audiences, what do they have in common, right? So instead of just, oh, they're completely different. So Crystal is a great example of people, they like that it's a little bit quirky. That's a shared value. There's a kind of a lot of independence, pride in the South, and that's crosses generations. So we look for that on each of these brands, or what are the things that really unite these audiences, instead of saying, oh, they're completely different and we have to change the brand. We also use a lot of just different channels and tools. I'm sure Katie's here from Tap On It. She's our SMS provider. But again, not a silver bullet, right? But I personally engage more with SMS and text than I do with email, but that's just one channel. And so it really comes down to a lot of the media mix, and then using the right creative. We have 2 Chainz and Ray J and some of these other big celebrities on Crystal. That's not really going to play, say, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but it's really great in Atlanta and really great in Memphis and some of our other markets with a younger audience. So we are trying to find a ways to really customize by channel, and with great partners like Tap On It, Yelp, and you guys, about how can we use data, divide up basically, but it's always about the brand of what do they have in common together, and what is the core of our brand.
We finally got to data. Let's talk a little bit about organic versus paid media. I think you have a really unique take on that, and so I'd like to hear a little bit about that. Also, I think you as a company, SPB, does an incredible job of melding data with creativity. So 2 questions, but if you could answer that.
Sure, yeah. Everybody says they're data-driven. We have to do data. The restaurant and food and beverage, we'd say it's probably 10 years behind, say, the rest of hospitality, so hotels, the others. When I worked at Focus Brands, our CEO, Jim, came in and said he was just shocked about how far behind, we had really big, cool brands at Focus. And the whole mission was digital transformation, bring in a CDP, bring in all the transactions together so we can really see one customer view, and then what's the so what of that? So we're doing the same thing at SPB. You talked about it before, Jay. We inherit a lot of legacy brands. Some of these were distressed assets. They all have different tech stacks. They all have different websites. So how do we have one loyalty provider, one CDP, one data, so that we can use that, we use USIM for media, so we're able to create segments, and it's a lot of the consumer brands, they've been doing it forever, but restaurants are, we've done about, it's like 3 or 4 years of digital transformations in like 6 months. So a lot of it is not only just, we have all of this data in the world from the POS, from e-com, everything else, but making it actionable is what we're trying to do.
Along the lines of the 3-year transformation, we were just talking about your CEO, Josh Kern, and how lucky you are to have a marketing-driven CEO. Could you juxtapose that with maybe some unlucky situations where you were not juxtaposed with a leader that was marketing-focused, and tell us about that versus what it's like to be working at SPB now, and how that helps you do your job?
Yeah, Josh is an awesome CEO to work for, and like you said, he was in my chair before. And it could be a double-edged sword if you have a marketer that you're reporting to that really knows his stuff of, well, why are you doing it this way? Why are you doing it this way? And Josh really isn't like that. We've set in on some basic strategy, and then we just go. I've had other, more ops-driven leaders or finance. I think finance, no offense to the finance people, it's probably the hardest for a marketer to work with. Kind of obsession with ROAS and ROI. And we always have to tell the story of 50% of my marketing spend works. I just don't know what 50%. Doesn't really fly with a finance guy. But still, I would say we're very fortunate, very lucky to have Josh as our CEO. And with consumer brands, especially restaurants, we have to stand out. There's constant new news. Whenever we select partners and vendors, it is about how can you help us, everybody says breakthrough and all of that. But we've got some really interesting properties that we can use and good partners. But it is trying to find the right channel and what's a good, say, advertiser for us to use somebody like a 2 Chainz effectively.
There was an earlier session where one executive said she doesn't care that much about ROAS. Give us your opinion on ROAS and whether or not how much that affects your decision making.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in private equity for too long to not be concerned with ROAS. I think it's like just the thing. But no, I do understand where she's coming from because I've worked on other brands where it was all about ROAS and that was it. And the joke was we were just squeezing blood out of a turnip, right? We weren't growing the audiences at all because we were just trying to get people, our core customer, to buy one more Cinnabon, come into McAllister's one more time, and not growing anything at all because there's lower ROAS with awareness campaigns. So I think it's having a great media partner like a USIM for us that can give us that model and say, okay, here's performance marketing below the line. This is just churning, right? Like this is how you get people in, drive CLTV, loyalty, all of those things. But you have got to grow the audience and you have to have new fans come in. We did see recently with our behavioral science partner that everybody gets addicted to kind of the coupon crack within restaurants and food and bev. Andrew and I were on Burger King, so we're laughing at this. But long-term, branding works better. It's for long-term love. It will drive sales over the longer term if you create an emotional connection, not just constantly try to drive with performance marketing. That's just hard because it's a long-term strategic play to say, I'm going to dedicate half of my marketing spend to growing the brand and making that emotional connection, not the quick win of, oh, I got somebody to convert.
Let's switch over to some of the really unique programs that SPB has, and let's go to Logan's and a little bit about the Grill Master certification program.
Yeah, I mean, marketer's worst nightmare for anybody or retail folks or B2C, that you have this awesome campaign, everything is amazing, and then they come into the actual experience and it's awful. So you really only have one shot with guests and customers, especially in our world. There's just too much competition. So operations and experience, I mean, it's cheesy, but it is true. I mean, your operators for us are the best marketing tools that we have. The person that's at the POS that's standing there, if that person doesn't know what is going on with the campaign, they don't know the offers, they don't know anything, then you probably lost that guest and you probably won't get them back. Right? There's just too much else. So with Logan's especially, right? We have to expand that to back of house for us. So front of house, we do a lot with marketing, right? Try to control the experience. That's easier. We tend to forget about the chefs and the cooks in the back, right? So how do you get them inspired? How do you get them to, in on the same experience? Even things like tip share and stuff like that. So the Grill Master program is to get everyone certified, within a Logan's and really, the consumer messaging is the person that is really creating your food is a Grill Master. They had to go through the certification process. This is the best steak that you're going to get at this price, instead of just, consumers assuming stuff's getting microwaved back there, right?
Yeah.
So that's a way for us to bring really front of house and back of house together and then tie it with a consumer message.
Do you feel that has extended to consumers wanting to be a Grill Master themselves and feeling that they are once they come into the restaurant?
Yeah, I think that's really the next step of bringing it outside of back of house in the restaurant. But, they get special shirts. I was in the Army, and Napoleon has this famous quote that he could conquer the world if he had enough ribbon. People do a lot for a medal, right? And so being identified and saying you have earned this achievement is very, very inspiring for people. So for us, we want to reward, a lot of our back of house, the front of house as well. So they don't just see it as like the corporate ivory tower coming down and telling you need to do the Grill Master program. It is, for their educational benefit. It gets them further in their career. They get paid more. And so for us, it's a way to really, like I said, just tie everything together.
That's great. One of the phrases you've used often in our conversations is innovate or die. Tell us the story behind Crystal's drive-through concept and the innovation there.
Yeah, so we saw about 90% of our transactions were through the drive-through. And why then would we have giant dining, right? And that's where it is right now. And so following the data and the experience, and it's not just us. You see, Wendy's and Checkers and a lot of others that are trying to go really hard on the drive-through experience. I think what we've learned, though, is that your digital experience needs to be just as good, right? So it does turn it into more of a transaction. It's not great for brand love as much because you can't experience the brand as much as if you come and sit down and eat. But still, looking at how do we get our quickest payback for a franchisee? So instead of them having to put $1 million in for a build, maybe it's $600K and your payback period is half the time, right? So we have to balance those things and say, what is best for the brand experience, but also what's best for our franchisees, for our owners, for ourselves, and what's best for the guest.
You also have a unique take. We're actually going to use the AI term, sorry, but you have a unique take on AI as well as far as how that informs your decision making.
Yeah, so this is the joke about AI is that it's Skynet and it's here to kill us all. Okay, that's a little dark, sorry. But I think that we have had a personal assistant for 30,000 years as humans. It's a being that knows us better than we know ourselves. It can read our facial features. It's been our best friend. It's your dog, right? So AI is really no different. We are teaching it to know us better than we know ourselves. And so we need to stop looking at AI as this kind of scary thing that's going to take over and look at it as more like Lassie that's here to help you. Again, that's within reason. It gets self-aware. Who knows what's going to happen? But I think a lot of the tools that we see with AI is really a way to plus up and help us as marketers. I'll give you a very quick story. HR needed, I think, 10 job descriptions for everybody on my team. We lost them. We don't know where they are. ChatGPT came in very handy, right? So things like that it's not going to take over somebody's job, but it's going to make it a lot easier to do yours.
Doing a lot with a little.
What's that?
Doing a lot with a little.
Yes, exactly, right.
Okay, another question. Of all your brands, Crystal Burger seems to be having the most fun with its branding. Tell us the story behind Side Chicks and your celebrity endorsements.
Yeah, I think QSR tends to be within restaurants a little bit more fun. Something like a J. Alexander's or Stony River for us, or even the breweries, they tend to not have as much of that new news and quirky and all that. I mean, if you go on Wendy's Twitter, there's a reason it's like that. It's trying to break through a little bit. So for Crystal, we are able to have a little bit more fun with it. We're trying to use that with Logan's and Old Chicago as well, give them more brand personalities. But I think we can kind of go the farthest with Crystal. The insight that we saw over 91 years is that, it's a small slider. It's a lot of small food. And so our fans expect that from us, of kind of like quirky, smaller things. And so with Side Chick, it was a way for us, we missed the chicken wars, right? We were too late. And so how do we break through a little bit more and have something that's a little bit more fun? And so actually one of our owners came up with, Chick-fil-A's closed on a Sunday, and I know that that's your main. So maybe come visit us on a Sunday. We'll be your Side Chick. So it was this kind of tongue-in-cheek funny thing. We used Brittany Renner, who is a, quote, famous side chick. And then we used our partners to kind of elevate the message and get it out and just have more fun with it. We were really worried that it was going to upset some of our older guests. Again, going back to the first question about Gen Z versus boomers and whoever. And we did see some of that, but we used analytics and tools. We did a lot of social listening just to make sure we could monitor the conversations. Okay, we didn't piss everybody off. And again, there was some of it, but what we saw for sentiment was people just got the joke and they thought it was kind of funny and they knew that we weren't serious. But it was a way for us to get a product out that was really good, we're really proud of, and launch it in a way that was a little bit more fun.
How did your team feel about the whole project? Tell me a little bit about, trying new things. Some things work, some things don't. How does the team feel about that? And as a leader, how do you gauge that and as for future endeavors?
Yeah, so I've got 3 main brand leaders on my team, and so I really give them their latitude to run their brands. And I always appreciated that from leaders in the past. And I want them to really know those brands inside and out and feel ownership over them. And so that process, so Caitlin Storer, who runs Crystal now, really stepped up and did a great job on that. And she's a little bit more on the conservative side. She's a little bit more reserved. And so she got out of her comfort zone with that one a little bit, but she got it intellectually. We saw the data. We understood that this was a way for us to launch a product that was fun. And again, we had this saying at 3JBK that if you're comfortable in your chair, change your chair. And so Caitlin really dove into that with this campaign.
That's great. Last question. Everyone is trying to customize the customer experience, right? For long-term value. What has worked well for SPB and what hasn't? Give us a failure and maybe a great success or two.
Yeah, so everybody talks about agile. We got to be agile. And then nobody really knows what agile is, right? And so a big part of it for us is celebrating failures. So every team call that we do our whole team every 2 weeks. And so we do shout outs about a win, right? Everybody, call somebody out, but then also a lesson learned. So we want to celebrate failures as long as you learn something from it. It's okay to fail. That's totally fine. You're not going to destroy the business. So we've made that kind of risk-taking more of a cultural thing for us. And there has been we rolled out a loyalty program with Patrons that they're a great partner for us, but it was not ready at Old Chicago yet. And so we were scrambling to get this really complicated, and it was of no fault of the vendor. We pushed a little bit too hard and really wanted to get this thing out quickly. We really almost alienated our really core fans on the beer side. It was kind of a scary moment. And so we had to buy back a lot of goodwill, go back to them and really listen to the customer and use the agile process of, all right, this 2-week sprint, we're going to fix this, then we're going to fix this, and communicate it to them. And really, at the end of the day, I think people just want to be heard. And so even though it was a little scary at the beginning, I think we bought a little bit more goodwill back with our fans at OC because of the experience.
That's great. I'll open now. Any questions for Casey about SPB, hospitality, or any of the brands?
You were talking about how you're trying to merge back house and front of house, and then also how to bring branding and loyalty throughout the generation. Do you feel like there's a way to merge all of it? I feel like a lot of people now are looking for sincere, companies and lifestyle brands. And, have you thought about making those stories and bringing them out to your audience, creating a holistic ecosystem around your brand?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great point. I think it's really about authenticity. That's what people really care about, right? So we do need to take those stories. A lot of it is just getting organized and being able to share this whole thing. But our biggest advocates are our team members in the restaurants. And so how do you tell their stories and it resonates with our guests? But that's what we're looking for with our partners and vendors is how do you help us tie all of this together? And don't just do it for one brand, do it for 17, right? There's no reason that I should have a zillion different partners, right? And so that's one of the things for us when we look at new, advertisers, whoever, are you on a scale journey with us? I don't need a whack-a-mole approach. But I think on that, especially we do a lot of behavioral science. That's a big thing for us. The hard part is taking, humans are a chemical algorithm. We just are, right? There are trigger points and things that we know if you put Cinnabon in a mall and somebody can smell it, they're going to go buy a Cinnabon, right? It's a chemical thing. So how do we take a lot of that science and apply it to marketing? The hard part for us is translating it to creative. So we know intellectually what all of this stuff is, right? But then something that really resonates, I think AI going back is going to really help with that because it'll be able to show, all right, this is what your fans really like. Let's scan the creative. Rad AI is with the partners that we're going to start using. That's something that they do. Again, Katie's side with SMS of doing A/B testing and all that. But to answer your question, I think that we have to tell stories. We're marketers. What are the stories that we should tell? And we don't talk about our own internal teams enough, and we should.
The gentleman over here.
I have a question. In some of the conversations I've had with direct LTOs will be often right, best amount of work goes into
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hello. I'll start again. No. But I'm just curious, from your perspective, LTOs, is it something that is a big strategy? What's your perspective on it? Because it seems to be, an industry trend seems to be that it's diminishing more and
Right.
focusing on just the product and pushing that out.
Yeah, I think at Burger King we had 13 LTOs a year, right? And it was crazy. I mean, it's too much. Outback we had the same. You know, it seemed like every 6 weeks we're turning out a new thing.
Yeah.
The smaller brands especially, you just don't have the media weight to change your message every 6 weeks. You just flat don't. I mean, we're up against, you know, Outback we had a $120 million working budget. If somebody like a Logan's that has 10. And so we're never going to be able to outshout the customer that way. So how do we do fewer, bigger, better? I think everybody in restaurants are trying to do that side. Even people have a giant ad budget. That's one side. The other side is just complexity with the restaurants. So you're asking team members to do something, you know, learn an entirely new product suite, how to cook it, train it, all of those things, and then it's over in 2 months.
Right.
So was it really worth?
And it could fail.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and it may have. And is it just more? Well, everybody does it, so we should do it. I think our side is that we looked at the core menus first, try to clean food costs as much as possible, get it under that magic 30% because they were all over the place. So before we could even think about LTOs, we needed the core just to be there and ops excellence to be there. But at the end of the day, you do need some kind of new news. People expect newer products, and it does depend on the brand. But I think all of us in general are looking on how do we do fewer, bigger, better.
You said 90% of your business is drive-through.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever considered AI? I'm using the bad word AI. I know everyone hates it when I say AI, but AI integration and that has been seen to be really increasing efficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever? Is there anything in plans for AI food drive-throughs for you?
Yeah, it's something we're testing now, and there's a few other brands that are out there doing it now. And it is, you know, they'll have it's an assistant that's there, and they'll name it something. So a lot of the customer experience when you're ordering, there's still things where it's not completely natural language quite yet. It's getting there. But I think without AI and without those tools, you have to be trying this stuff. And so we do have plans to eventually roll it out, digital menu boards and all of that. But it's where it fits in by brand. Somebody like a J. Alexander's or Stony River, you know, we did this at InBev where we rolled out a massive online ordering platform for all of our global customers. And what we saw that the higher end, no, I want to talk to a human. Like I want to have an experience in the restaurant. If it's a transactional thing of like, I just am trying to get a cup of coffee and I don't really need to talk, that's where AI is perfect. So it does depend on the brand for us. But it's got to be more natural, I think. And some of the stuff we did see too is a lot of customers felt it was just constantly trying to upsell you. Right. Like I get what the algorithm is. Add-ons.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
With 17 brands, and you know, in hospitality, we see this a lot with hotels. You know, there's a lot of intention that goes behind every single brand, but sometimes who you think your target customer is sometimes different from the actual target customer, or in certain instances, it evolves. Can you share some experiences of if that has happened, and if so, how do you respond to that quickly, knowing all the time and effort you put into cultivating a particular audience?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys see it too. It's difficult even with franchisees or owners as well because they have their perspective on, well, this is who comes to my restaurant or my hotel or whoever. So we use Data Central is one of the tools that we use. I did have a very specific example with Crystal that, you know, we had audience indexes with the surveys, and with Black America, we were at like 200, and we didn't speak to anybody. They weren't really even part of the plans before the current ownership came in. And that was a big shift for that brand to be able to really engage with that customer. We also saw on the Hispanic side with some of our brands that, we don't really resonate with the HCM community at all. Well, we also didn't do anything in Spanish language, right? So some of these, well, you have to, even if the data says, the indexes just aren't there, some of them are very clear for us. All right, that's exactly who our customer is. AI is helping us with that because it helps kind of scrape social listening. Here's some audiences out there you didn't even know existed that engage with your brand. But on the Hispanic consumer side, some that we were scoring very low, and we had to look at it the opposite way of, well, it's because we're not engaging with anybody. We're not delivering any products that are tailored to that audience at all. And so that has been a big shift for us. So it's kind of data is a two-way street, you know.
Yeah, and I should clarify, I work at a youth sports advertising management platform. So, you know, when we think about traveling and travel occasions and meal occasions, that's kind of where I was thinking more about, like the audiences. Sometimes they're stopping in for this reason, or they're, you know, they've got different reasons to stop by different hotels, or sorry, different restaurants and different occasions for dining and times and all that you
Right.
manage.
Yeah, we had something specific with Old Chicago where we used to get youth sports, like it would come after a game or after a practice, right? And it was this great thing that we felt that was really the core customer, and then we lost them. We don't really know why, so we're trying to get that back. We think it was because the bar side took over, and there was way too much focus on the sports bar aspect of that brand and not enough back on the family side. So we see stuff, we'd watch a lot, but again, I mean, there wasn't really data on that side. It was more of an anecdotal thing, talking with the operators. Like, we never get T-ball parties anymore. And I was like, it's hard to measure that, but again, they were right, you know?
Sounds like we've just created a strategic partnership
Right,
during the
absolutely.
session. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank everyone for coming today. Casey, I want to thank you for all the insight and
Thank
taking
you.
your time. Really appreciate it. Let's give Casey a round of hand.
Thank you, appreciate it.